So there is this understanding that laughter is healing. A gentleman named Norman Cousins wrote a book years ago, and he said in that book that he cured himself of a horrible, debilitating disease by laughing. He put on Marx Brothers movies, and he just sat there and he giggled like crazy. And suddenly, where he wasn't able to walk, now he became an Olympic athlete. Okay? Not exactly. That's not exactly what happened. What happened really was that he stated that as an adjunct to his care, in addition to medicines, and he did supplementation, that he used laugh therapy. He created this laugh therapy. And he stated that it really made a big difference. And in fact, science tells us that it does, that is the case. Laughter releases chemicals called endorphins, the feel-good chemicals. It also releases, or it actually suppresses cortisol, the stress hormone. It increases certain immunomarkers. So there is something to be said for laughter, and part of my mission is to assist in your personal healing. Towards that end, I have invited a doctor of laughter today. A couple of things about him. His name is Mike Cicoli. He is a comedian. He's the kind of guy that you will see come up on your Facebook feeds. You might not want to see him on there, but he will pop up anyway. That's part of his job, is to get known in that way. And he's an up and coming comedian. He's in that world. He has reels out. He is going to be opening possibly for a very big and a very ethically challenged comedian coming up soon, someone who got into trouble a few years ago. But I don't think Mike had anything to do with that. So what I want to do is I want to bring him on and ask him certain questions. I want to get his opinions and his perspective on comedy and how it helps people in their healing and in their lives, and how it improves the quality of life. So let's do that right now. Everyone, this is Mike. Don't call me Spicoli, Cicoli.
What's up? How's it going? How's it
How you
going,
doing,
Dave?
Mike? Everything good?
Everything is great. I'm a doctor now.
You are a you're a laugh doctor.
That's right.
I happen to be a doctor of love, but let's not let that get out there too much. People will be coming to me for the wrong reasons. So let's get into it a little bit, Mike. First of all, a little bit about you. Who are you? How did you get into this crazy profession?
Well, when I was in high school, I was always a class clown. I feel like that's the basic origin. But my English teacher, actually, he was somebody who told me about an open mic in New Brunswick. And I remember I went home and I was telling my dad about it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, get like 5 minutes together and we'll all go." He's like, "Whenever you're ready." And I used to go outside. I used to practice in front of him. I'd like write 5 minutes, and then they took me to my first open mic. I think I was a senior in high school. And then
So you were 17, 18?
Yeah, I was 17 when I first went on stage, but I didn't pick it up again until about, I did it like once or twice again that year, and then I didn't pick it up again until like maybe 6 months later, another year later.
Well, Mike, that sounds terrifying. How did that go the first time?
So the first time I was very excited. I was thinking about it like every day. I think it took me a month to write my first 5 minutes. My dad helped me. But when I first got there, I didn't get nervous until I walked in, and it's an open mic. And this was years ago now. So back then the mic was very popular. There was a lot of people there all the time. People would drop in, and the night I was there, I think I was 12th, and I got bumped to 13th because Rich Voss came in. Rich Voss is a he's an hysterical stand-up comic. He was on Last Comic Standing. He's a Jersey local, and he's known as the legend Rich Voss. And he came in, and I'll never forget, he was wearing golf pants. He came in wearing golf pants, and he did about 20 minutes, and he murdered, and it was great. And then I went up right after him.
You went up right after. Did you
I went up right after. What'd you say?
Did you soil yourself?
I was close. I was sweating. I was only 17. It was the first time. It was packed, too, for an open mic. It must have just been a good night we went. But I went up and I did decent for my first time. I didn't bomb, which is good. But yeah,
You got a couple of laughs?
I got a decent amount of laughs, yeah. And for the stuff that I was talking about too, I think they were just being nice because they did say before I went on stage, "It's his first time."
Got it. Like, be gentle.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. What is that like when you're on stage and people are there for the sole purpose of being entertained, of laughing, and the burden is on you. So what is that like?
You know, people. I hear a lot of people say like, "Oh yeah, it's a very rewarding thing to make people laugh," and I think a lot of people on the outside think that like, "Oh wow, that's so cool that you're going up there and you're making people laugh." And they think you're like this good person, but if I'm being completely honest, it's a total selfish act and I'm doing it for me. Like I'm not doing it for the other people. Just like I want to it's a weird thing to explain. Like yeah, I love making people laugh, but it's because I like it. You know what I mean? Because if I go up there and I make a joke and like it doesn't hit, I don't feel that bad about it. You know what I mean?
Got it. So basically, you don't care about people.
Exactly.
You
Yeah,
you
yeah.
you're a misanthrope, and you don't care if they're happy, they're miserable. But if they're kind enough to throw a couple of giggles your way,
Yeah.
then it validates you in some way.
Well, I do. Yeah, I do. I have a better time when they laugh.
Is it
I don't drive home in silence when they laugh.
is it important that they do, or is it sort of incidental?
It's important. Well, it is important to me that they do, but there are some nights where I'm like, that was incidental. You know, there are some nights where you're like, you go up there and within the first 5 minutes, you kind of know how it's going to be, or when you get there, you kind of know how it's going to be. But there's a lot of fun in turning it around, and it is very. I'm obviously joking around. But it is very rewarding to make them laugh, and especially when they come up to you and they're at the end and they're like, "Oh, I had a hard week" or something like that. Like a lot of fundraisers, people will be like, "Yeah, these people have been, it's been a rough go, but we had a great time and we got to get distracted by it," which I think, to your point about health, laughter being good for your health, I think a lot of it has to do with distraction and getting your mind off of whatever in that moment is bothering you.
Well, why would that be necessary?
To be distracted.
Yeah, I'm being sort of sarcastic right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, I know.
But before we go there, I want to move into that, but a little bit. Just to be clear, do you feel better about yourself if you do what you believe is a terrific set? You amuse yourself and you're witty in some way, and nobody really laughs. Would you prefer that to doing what you in your mind is a horrible set and people are cracking up for some reason?
Well, I think that I'm very, very hard on myself when I'm up there, and I think that a lot of comics are. So when I'm up there and I'm like I'm hyper aware of what's going on. Like the stuff's coming out of my mouth sometimes, but you're so in the moment that you're really studying the crowd and seeing what's going on. So if they're laughing at something that like I'm not used to them laughing, like if I don't think I'm having a good set but they're laughing, that's when your mind starts racing. But I mean, if you're up there and they're laughing, if you're just doing something differently and they're laughing at it, something they don't normally laugh at, every single crowd's different. You kind of just gotta
Right.
feel out the room and see know where you are too. Where you are has a big part of it.
But
But yeah,
it's got to make you a little crazy because you could theoretically tell the same joke in six different shows in a row and get six different responses.
absolutely.
So what do you think the secret sauce is? Why will sometimes people laugh and other times they won't? Is it your delivery? Is it the energy?
Yeah.
What is it?
Well, it could be every single show is different. It could be like there's some stuff that works in like a theater, and there's some stuff that works in a theater that doesn't necessarily work in a comedy club or vice versa. It's kind of like when you first start, if you really love doing it so much and you really like caught that bug, you're going to try to get spots and do time at some weird places. Some weird places do comedy shows. Like when I first started out, hookah bars were big. You would go to hookah bars and there'd be
Interesting.
a big show, and you're kind of desperate for that time when you first start because nobody knows you. So you're getting up in a lot of sticky situations. it's gonna happen, and it is scary at first, but it definitely prepares you for, when things happen when you're on stage that you need to be ready for. It's just like training for any other job, except like instead of going to college and libraries after high school, you're in dive bars and hookah bars and weird places. So,
Huh. Yeah, I would imagine in the hookah bars, the temptation is to go around and put some funny tobacco into the hookahs
oh
themselves.
yeah, but I always prepare beforehand. When I first started, it was illegal, so that was something you had to do in private before you got to the show.
You can't dose people. You can't microdose people without their consent, can you?
Exactly. That's become a thing now where like you can tell. I've had a couple people on mushrooms at shows so far, like psychedelics and stuff like that. There's also
That's got to be
there's a
interesting.
lot of shows where you can smoke weed, and those shows are fun, but you want to go up in like the very beginning.
Well, you don't know if it's sincere also. Like,
Yeah.
are they laughing because you're actually funny, or are they laughing because they are hallucinating?
Yeah. Well, you come to find out that the crowds aren't really most crowds aren't that forgiving, you know? Like
Mm,
they're not gonna a lot of people aren't just gonna laugh because they know it's the end of the joke. Especially if you're at a club, they're expecting to see like they're like, oh, these guys know what they're doing, and then I mean, people bomb, you know. It does happen, but you gotta bomb because like how are you trying? You're not taking risks if you're not bombing.
yeah, how
You're
do
not
you know?
trying new material if you're not bombing.
Right, right. That
So
makes sense.
yeah, and bombing does make you better, but it's just something that you can't be afraid to do it. If you go up there and you're afraid to bomb, you're never really gonna grow.
I have a feeling that the people who get into this profession are doing it for just pretty much self-therapy. I mean, talk about something that's going to make you a stronger person, and the ability, not only that, to just unload all your shit onto multiple people every night.
Yeah. Yeah,
Get
it
it
is.
out.
It is just like therapy in a lot of ways because writing jokes is hard, and if you're writing about your life, you really got to like delve into every small detail to just find the joke and find out what's funny about it. I think, but um, it is rewarding, especially if it's something serious you're talking about. If you're able to laugh about it, it does help you with the situation. And then when you're doing it at these shows and you're just watching other people laugh about it, you're like, okay, like some good came out of this. Some good came out of this thing that happened. And it
Right.
kind of like it's like laughing at the things that happen to you, and as bad as they could get, really does help. It's like the confidence you have about it. It's like if you don't let it break you, makes you feel like like a bigger person.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because you mentioned stress relief before. Laughter has a really important role in our society, maybe more these days than ever before. So, um, what do you think the most important thing is for society or for individuals is about laughter? What does it do for people that's absolutely necessary?
I think it just with everything going on today. I mean, why you turn on TV for like 3 seconds? There's just a lot. There's just negative news and all this stuff, and like it's warranted. The world is a crazy place. Seeing crazy stuff every day. You're being scared every day. If you want to come to a comedy show and unwind and hear people like laugh in the face of all this danger that's around you, that's fun, and that's cool. It's like it's everyone's chance to lighten up because that's what that building's for. That's what that comedy club's for. Like you go into the comedy club, you leave your problems at the door. You kind of all you have to do is sit there. You just sit there and listen to people talk, have a
Well,
drink, eat.
yes, and on the one hand, but on the other hand, you're bringing your problems in, so you can be reassured that you're not the only one who has those problems. I
Of
mean,
course,
part of it is just group commiseration.
right, right. I
It,
think that it you find a lot. I find some of the funniest stuff is the stuff that you go through every day and the stuff people can relate to. And when you're there and everyone's laughing at something that everybody identifies with and understands, kind of brings everybody together. I think everybody's going through the same situations every day. Everybody's in it together. So I think that that helps a lot too.
Mike, what is your particular approach to comedy and to making people laugh? Is it the pointing out the absurdities of others? Is it the shock that, some people, you and I have talked about, like, what's his first name? Is it Anthony Jeselnik?
Anthony Jeselnik, yeah, he's great.
Anthony Jeselnik or Sarah Silverman. I mean, Sarah Bernhardt back in the day.
Mhm.
I mean, their things are really to shock people, right?
Yeah.
So what is it that you're trying to accomplish?
I don't know. When I go on stage, I kind of just want everybody to feel like we're all just hanging out. Like we're all down the basement and we're all just chilling. I don't know. I want to be everybody's friend, but I want to I want to be able to bust chops too.
Okay.
I guess. I just want everybody to feel comfortable and like we're all hanging out, and I want them to have a great time and laugh.
So it's very much like a shooting the shit approach.
Right. Yeah.
Who would you compare your style to that I would know?
I don't know. I feel like there's so many comics are so different. I don't know. I don't know if I could even play. Sometimes I don't even know who I am up there. It kind of all just like I kind of just sit back and just let it happen, depending on the show. So I don't know. We got to get you out to a show. You got to tell me. It's so
I do.
hard
I haven't been to one yet. I'm
tell
going
you
to.
myself.
Especially if you end up opening for that guy who, like I said,
Oh yeah, definitely come to that.
Somewhat morally bankrupt. I definitely want to go and
Well,
and see that.
any show you see me at, you're gonna see somebody morally bankrupt. So you're more than welcome to come to any.
Again, another example of being able to feel better about yourself, which is I think a big reason that people like comedy so much.
Yeah.
There's a certain perspective that's created there, and part of that perspective is we're all in this together. We're all a little messed up in the head, and maybe you're not as bad as you think you are.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, when you find you have something in common with someone, it kind of makes you feel like you're not alone anyway. And then when you're hearing about these jokes on stage and you hear all these people laughing, you're like, not only do I have something in common with maybe the comic, I have something in common with this guy next to me, everybody who's laughing. It's like everybody, you're literally coming to a place, sitting in a dark room with strangers, laughing, having a good time. But then there's another part of it. A lot of people get scared too, especially when it's their first show.
The image I had, a dark room with strangers laughing and having a good time, that's very Diddy-esque, isn't it?
Yeah, except exactly. That's not a party you would I would rather come to the show. You
mean minus the baby oil?
Minus the baby oil. Well, I always bring a bottle just in case.
Well,
you never know what's going to happen.
But this is good, though. So this opens something else up. So we're talking about what's wonderful about comedy and about laughing and how therapeutic it is. Is there a dark side? Does it have an evil side? And if so, what have you seen that you think comedy was used for evil purposes?
I don't know. I don't think
I'll point one out if it's helpful. I think an example of it. What happened with Michael Richards a few years ago. Maybe he just took a big swing and missed, or maybe he was just coming from some really dark place at the time.
I think that well, first of all, like the whole Michael Richards thing, that was a long time ago. So I think it could have been a really big swing and he missed, but I mean he's definitely paid for it, I think. But all I know is I listen to it every night before I go to bed.
Right.
Like white noise.
You listen to comedy every night before you go to bed?
No, specifically the Michael Richards video. Specifically that one. It's like
as an example of what not to do?
Huh?
As an example of what not to do?
No, it's like listening to the rain. Like a white noise kind of just puts me to sleep.
Okay.
I don't know. The Michael Richards thing. That was I remember when that happened, watching it, like, oh my God. That was a meltdown. But it's just unfortunate because like that's one one mistake. I mean, it was one thing that he said multiple times, but it's like that's one example of why you shouldn't probably have cell phones at a comedy show.
They
But
shouldn't be allowed. They're not allowed in birthing rooms anymore because, hospitals and birthing centers have realized that there's a liability issue. If they're filming it and something goes wrong, they've got the proof right there.
right.
So people should check their cell phones at the door when it comes to comedy.
Yeah, and also that if you're coming to a comedy show, a lot of the times people are working on. Well, this is another to the point before. A lot of times comics when they're on tour, they're working on material and they're working on new bits. And if you try something for the first time, it could bomb. It could be like maybe a worse thing a worse reaction than you thought it would be. But that's not something that should be recorded because it's not ready. You haven't had the chance to try it and have it bomb, or try it and have someone get upset. Maybe you don't know what's wrong with it at first, or it's just not, it doesn't match with everything else you're doing. You're never going to know till you try. And if someone's recording that and putting it out there, it's unfinished work. It's
Hmm.
not good yet. So then it's kind of like you're ruining what it could have been. I've
Yeah.
had jokes that I've done a few times, and they end up changing completely and being about something completely different. And now it's a different joke. It's better or what? But it's only ready when you think it's ready. So like, there's really no reason to have your phone out at a comedy show anyway. Really, all you have to do is sit there. It's amazing how many people mess that up. It's like the easiest thing in the world. You go, you sit, and you watch. But some people just can't handle
They want to
bachelorette
be they want
parties.
to be a part of the show.
Yeah, which is understandable, and sometimes it's fun. But like I said, there's really only one thing you got to do when you go.
But that's what I mean, though, as far as the dark side. And this is, it's almost a cliche. There was a movie, Mr. Saturday Night, and it was about a comedian who was just a very angry person.
Mhm.
So there is that aspect. There are comics who I think their purpose might be to incite sometimes. It's a fine line between like provoking people, making fun of them, shocking them, being thoughtful, and actually inciting some kind of hateful stuff, especially these days.
Right.
Have you ever seen anybody work who it seemed like that was their intention? They didn't have that good, let's all laugh, and even if we do cross the line thing, it's coming from a good place kind of going on.
I've never seen anybody go up and purposely try to like shit on someone in the audience, or purposely try to offend. I don't think that with like a real comedian, there's, let's say if there's 5,000 people who call themselves comedians, in that
Mhm.
5,000 people there are 100 comedians.
I feel that way about digital marketers.
Yeah, I mean, it's with so many things. You can call
Yeah.
yourself something and you can actually do it, but are you actually doing it? And what are your intentions? And I think that if all the real comics and the people who kind of know what they're doing, I don't think anybody really goes up there with the intent to piss people off, because that's not the gig. The thing is, you go up and you make people laugh. And I think if someone is going up there and like intentionally pissing someone off, which I think is rare, I think that it's either they don't mean to do it or they just haven't learned the language yet, like the comedy language. They don't know how to really form a joke. But I really don't think people go out there with ill intent, unless somebody is like, unless there's like a heckler, or now they
Right.
have to kind of hold the reins on the show, and you know, but
And with that, when that happens with a heckler, are all bets off? Is there any line there for you personally? Like, do you say, okay, it's on now, and I've got to destroy this person?
I think that it all starts. So I try to just remember everybody is there to have a good time, and I don't think people, that people really want to be part of the show sometimes, and people get drunk and things happen. But I try to remember when I'm there, like, these are the people coming to the show. They are so excited. So I try to give it a little leeway. I do like talking to the crowd a little bit during my set, but there's only been like a handful of times where it went disrespectful, and you don't want to lose that battle.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, so
What happens if you do?
you got to be just. I mean, then you've lost the reins of the show. You got to just
Right.
hope that that's the nightmare, like the same nightmare that that people have. Some people have when they go to a comedy show. Like sometimes a regular guest will go into a comedy show and they'll be like, please just don't sit us up front, because everybody thinks that that's what's going to happen. I don't want anybody to think when they come to a show that I'm going to change the course of their life by something I say to them, like in a bad way.
Yeah, that
But
would be funny. There's a waiting list for all the seats in the back, and in the front, nobody's
yeah,
there.
oh, I've done so many like comedy clubs are good with it because they will say, I'm sorry, but this is how we seat the room, and it's going to be okay. If they really have a problem with it, they'll move them to the back. But comedy clubs are usually good with it. Some people want to sit up front, but I'm not the type of person to go up there and just like point at someone and start fucking ruining their self-esteem. Unless they
Right.
deserve it, then you got to do what you got to do.
This gets into something a little bit different, related, but it's kind of this group dynamic that happens. There's an energy in any crowd, and it's your job to manage that energy.
Right.
So is that something that you play with? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah. Well, you want them to have a good time. You kind of just got, it's all about feeling out the crowd, really. I mean, if you're going up there and they're not really reacting to what you're saying, you got to kind of take the time to figure them out and be like, okay, let's try this. And if that doesn't work, let's try this. And if, you're just exhausting your options and you've drawn attention, I like to draw attention to it if it happens. Like if it's just not going well, talk about why and maybe go into the crowd and stuff. But sometimes the crowd's just not having it. Sometimes it's been a long show and they're like, all right, it's time to wrap it up. People get tired. People are coming there after work. People get drunk. So
Sure.
it's all, sometimes there's a lot of audible calling, but most of the time people just really want to have a good time.
But you will actually call out the crowd. You'll say like, hey, what's going on here? Like, why is this so sucky right now?
It's very dependent on the situation, but yeah, absolutely. I'd be like, you guys all right? Like, what's going on? I mean, it helps because the attention spans could be so short that people just they tune out after a little bit. But that's your job. That's on the comic. Like, just be entertaining.
Well, a couple of questions about that come to mind. So, first of all, what kind of responses will you get if people aren't laughing and the energy's low, and you say, "Hey, what's going on with you people?"
Really not. I mean, you really kind of just you address them as a whole. This is also like if it's not going well. Most of the time, people when they come to the comedy show, they want to laugh and they want to have a good time. But if you're up there and no one's laughing and you're bombing, you're bombing. You got to fill your time. So you got to kind of just. I mean, if it's happening to me, I just kind of try to get myself out of it. Turning it around when you turn it around is great, but sometimes there's just nothing you can do.
So it's like a pitcher that
Sometimes
doesn't have his
them.
fastball.
Honestly, sometimes it's them.
Yeah, you try to get through it with junk. I could see that, right? So is it acceptable? Let's say it's one of those nights where whether it's them or whether it's you, it's not happening. At that point, when you say you audible, are you trying to do something else? Maybe just work on material or get people to think a little bit, be profound. Where do you go at that point?
Well, if they're just not laughing.
Yeah, if it's one of those nights where you don't have it, are you trying to do something else? Maybe, I could see instead of them laughing, they're not laughing. So now you go to a place of like, well, let me make them think. And then this way I can play it off like I'm really smart and I'm just philosophizing and this is really profound.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. If they're not laughing, they're not laughing. Like, I'm going to try till the end of my set to make them laugh. I'm not just going to give up, but it's going to be more of a, the vibes change in the room to what, like when I was saying before, I want it to feel like we're all just hanging out. Like if we're all just hanging out and you guys aren't going to have a good time, I want to know why. And I want to know what's going on. But you can't really, so you have to understand as when you're a comic that's going to happen. It doesn't mean sometimes I mean, it could sometimes mean you suck if you're first starting out and you just got to keep your material's forever changing. Crowds are forever changing. Everything going on you is forever changing. So there's always some way to pull yourself out of it, but it just comes with doing it for a long time. When that stuff first happens to you and you first start bombing a lot, you're like, okay, what's not working? And then you take it to the drawing board and you can rewrite your jokes. Your jokes are forever being rewritten. There's also the point of when you're going into a show, you sometimes know as soon as you walk into the room if it's going to be good or bad. Like you're getting up at all these places and you're doing so much time that you're getting the experience, you're getting the feel for what crowds look like, and when you walk in, what the room looks like. Or the room has a lot to do with it too, how the show's set up. um there's so many moving pieces, but really all I worry about is I go there. If I have new jokes, I try them. If it's like a lot of new stuff, there's a chance. Yeah, there's a chance you're going to bomb. It's new. You don't know if it's funny. If you think it's funny, that's fine. But you also have pieces of the joke in your head that maybe you're not voicing the right way. Sometimes you change one word of a joke and it changes the whole outcome of of the the joke. So you'll
It just takes incredible cojones. I mean, to
I
do
do
what
have I do have very big balls.
clearly, uh, clearly. I mean, you have to bring a wheelbarrow with you. But
Yeah,
what makes you keep doing it? I mean, it's got you. So you've experienced all this pain, and so at times it has to be excruciating. But yet, what keeps you going? What brings you back the next time?
because you fucking hate yourself and it's all you know. No, I don't know. I you love it. It's good. It's fun. It's like, I mean, writing a joke itself and then going up there. You take the joke from it's in your head, and it's like this little thought that isn't even funny at first, and but you see something there. You take that thought and then you come up with like a joke for it, and then you go tell these strangers, and then they laugh. They laugh at something you thought about that day in your head that you didn't even know if it could be a joke or not yet, and then you're trying it that night and people are reacting to it. It is very rewarding, and it's great, and it's a very very fun time. But you just gotta stick around long enough for it to start getting fun, because it's hard at first. You never know what you're really walking into. Hello. Hello. Can you hear me? I think you just.
Okay, I have you back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, good. So hopefully we'll be okay for a couple of minutes here.
Mhm.
Mike, tell me this. Let's imagine that humor was never invented. What would the world be like?
Humor was never invented.
Yeah. Like at some point, many thousands of years ago, someone farted or told a funny joke or something, and people realized, well, hey, we could have this ha ha sound and it can make us feel good. What if that never occurred and humor was invented? What kind of a world are we looking at?
What kind of world would we be living in if humor was never invented? I mean, I would assume a pretty depressing world. Um, I don't know. I can't even imagine what that would be like, because it's so easy to laugh. Like you could laugh at a fart. So I mean, it's literally it would be so
What would
hard
it
to
do?
not to picture what that would be like. I feel like it's such a big part of everybody's day. I live to laugh. I go throughout my whole day waiting for something funny to happen, waiting to be entertained. So, I mean, I wouldn't have lasted if humor wasn't a real thing.
Do you think the world wouldn't exist at this point?
No, we'd all be dead by now. There's been a
Yeah.
couple
Yeah.
close calls where we all almost ended up dead. So, imagine if no one was laughing about it.
We'd be dead. We'd be grateful for it. Would have been.
Yeah. Can you hear me? It sounds like you're breaking up a little bit.
here. I don't know. Yeah, I think I hand off because it's going to continue to happen. It's going to get more and more frustrating, and even if we find the humor, in it, we won't be able to express it. So listen, thank you for coming. Thank you for having this conversation. This is a conversation that you and I have on a regular basis at this point.
Yeah.
But it's fun to share it with everybody.
It is. It is fun. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. This was fun.
You got it. All right, let's end up now. I'll see everyone next week.
I'll see you next week.
Okay.